Welcome back, everybody. Great to be here, as always, on these Cabral House Calls on the weekend. My opportunity to answer our community's questions every Saturday and Sunday. Typically get to about 10 questions, sometimes just a little bit more, just depending on the amount of time it takes to answer each and every question that come through. So what I want to do right now is just pick up where we left off last week. So if you are new to the show, every Saturday, every Sunday, I answer questions that come in at stephencabral.com/askcabral. If you have your own question, it takes about 6 to 8 weeks for me to get to it, only because of the queue that's built up. But if you ever need same-day answers, feel free to just write in at cabralsupportgroup.com. That's just for health-based questions. If you need order support, tracking a product, whatever it might be, you need help running a lab, simply email support at equa.life. That's EQUI.LIFE, Equalife. That's the company, and the website's just equa.life. That's all. All right. Let's dive into the show. All things wellness, weight loss, weight gain, anti-aging, high performance health. We're diving in. This is episode 3368 if you want to follow along with the questions. First one today is from Brian. Brian says, "Hi, Dr. Brawl. Don't know if there's a limit to how many questions I can ask, but I'll try not to be too much of a pest with the house calls." No problem, Brian. Almost every single morning, I seem to wake up with tears and crud around my eyes, often when I yawn in bed. I did a search online and dry eyes kept coming up as the culprit. Maybe you've answered this one before, but do you agree? Is there anything I can do about it? I usually put omega-3 drops in my eyes before bed and thought they would take care of the dry eyes in the morning, but I guess not. Appreciate any tips or natural remedies you might think may help the problem. Thanks. Okay. So dry eyes is only one of like a dozen different reasons that you could wake up with eye crusties, the little lightish, brownish, sometimes green crusties in the corner of your eyes. And when it gets really bad, sometimes the whole eyelid could be crusted shut near the eyelashes. Well, usually it is an overproduction of mucus from the eyes, and then it dries, right? But we have to ask ourselves, why the overproduction of mucus? Now, could it be dry eyes and then your eyes are overproducing to compensate with oil or mucus? Maybe, but it also could be eye-based infection. Another reason is that there is inflammation in and around the eye, like conjunctivitis or some type of allergen in the eyes as well. You could be sensitive to dust and dust mites, and you've got dust mites under the pillow or in the pillow. Could be from mold. There's a lot of different reasons why, and there's always a reason for that. I'm not the biggest advocate of omega-3 drops in the eye. I don't have a problem with it, but honestly, health is from the inside out. And so there are great antioxidants. You need all the regular antioxidants, the vitamin C's, the vitamin E's, all those. But there's a product called Daily Vision and Eye Health that contain lutein, zeaxanthin, astaxanthin. It's a much more powerful product. And then you would use the 2 grams of the daily omega-3 support separately. That's in addition, of course, to a great anti-inflammatory diet, good hydration, and then figuring out what the underlying root cause is, like what's going on with the eyes. Maybe you want to do a little bit of colloidal silver. I'm not going to recommend that, of course, because I can't provide any medical advice, medical treatment, medical cures, medical diagnosis. But a lot of people who have eye-based issues use that for pink eye, conjunctivitis, and it can help quite a bit. 3 or 4 times a day, a couple squirts in each eye, 3 to 4 days, 3 to 5 days maximum, and that's about it. I don't know the underlying root cause, but I would certainly look at that. I used to have a terrible case of this. Mine was gut-based issues and bad allergies. So I had to fix my gut. You can run the Big 3 Gut Bundle. All of this, by the way, every single product, every single lab is at stephencabral.com/shop. That'll take you over to Equalife, and you'll see exactly what we do in our practice. And as I always say, you can choose to work with an integrative health practitioner outside of our practice, or really anyone you want, but at least you'll have exactly what we do in our practice. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Brian is a good place to get started. Brian's up again. I know, Brian, you said you weren't going to ask too many questions, but all kidding aside, I have no problem if you want to ask more questions. Maybe if we see like it become the Brian podcast, we'll just bump some of your questions to the next week, but we'll definitely answer all of them. All right, Brian says, "Hi, Dr. C. About a year ago, I did a barium, not enema, they have that actually, but a barium swallow test, and was diagnosed with a slow gut and mild esophagus dysmotility. Took about 4 hours for the barium I drank to pass into my stomach. For when most people, it takes like an hour or less. My gastroenterologist told me I had a slow gut and taking milk of magnesia before bed would help. Results have been so-so. Wrote in before, but want to let you know I appreciate all the work and Renaissance style approach to all things related to health and wellness best. Happy to help, Brian, and glad you wrote in on this. So, milk of magnesia is not the answer. I know that you know this, but we've got something going on in the body, and I would love for you to run the Big 5 lab tests. My opinion, that because you want to look at gut health, minerals, vitamins, heavy metals, but I also want to look at cortisol levels and overall hormones, DHEA. I want to look at vitamin D3. I want to look at food sensitivities. I want to look at your omega-6 to your omega-3 levels. So, and I get all of that with the Big 5. So again, StephenCabral.com/big, the number 5, you'll be able to find that, because most likely there is some type of big inflammation and or stressor on your body. Could be Candida overgrowth, could be parasites, could be H. pylori, could be SIBO. Again, I can't give you any diagnosis here, but there's some inflammation, and then there's most likely some stress because things are moving very slow. This is called slow gut motility, slow gut. It's not a diagnosis for anything. It literally just tells you like, okay, what's going on? Yeah, move slowly. Why? Typically when someone's in more of the fight or flight, which is called the sympathetic nervous system, there's slower bowel motility, slower gut motility. And that's because in order to be able to digest, you need to be in the parasympathetic nervous system. The body works really well, and the central nervous system is what enables fight or flight and or rest and digest. And so if your body's stuck in fight or flight, it can't move to rest and digest and repair. So we obviously need to move over to that, which is decreasing stress, improving sleep, decreasing inflammation. And so then a personalized plan really will help you with all of that. Hopefully, again, that gets you started in the right direction. Digestive enzymes can help. I don't want to the sleep health protocol can help, but I would rather find the underlying root cause. That's really what I want to do, is help find the underlying root cause. All right. And then if you haven't read the Rain Barrel Effect yet, Brian, I would read the Rain Barrel Effect. It's going to really outline where to get started. Katie says, please discuss your thoughts on Demodex mites, especially possibly affecting eyes or skin, ways to improve if necessary. Oh, okay. Great question. Demodex. These are natural. These mites always occur, to my knowledge. I'm not an expert in these specific mites, but they're always there. They actually serve somewhat of a symbiotic relationship. I know them. Yeah, they're a little bit on the skin. You're right. Definitely on the scalp. And they actually help remove some dead skin cells, to the best of my knowledge. And as I said, but they're a parasite, right? Mites are a little bit of a parasite, but they're kind of naturally there. That's what I found, and that they're not an issue. Now, if they become overgrown, this could be actually due to a skin microbiome issue. Using something like a small amount of coconut oil with some tea tree plus a little bit of rosemary can be great for the scalp. That's antimicrobial, antifungal, and even anti-parasitic. So that can be really helpful. For the skin, I don't usually use coconut oil on your face. It is a thick saturated fat. It can clog the pores in some, not everyone, but in some. Much more apt to use argan oil, which I've seen just work really well. Maybe even a jojoba oil mixed with a couple drops of tea tree. Start with just a small patch, literally the size of like a nickel or dime. Make sure you don't react to it. And that can be really nice as well. They also make tea tree wipes now that can be really nice for the face. I don't have the brand name, but my wife has gotten them before, and she actually has talked quite highly of them. So I keep saying I'm going to up my skin game. I do a little bit more, little by little. I'm doing a little bit more, but I'm so all in on, the de-stress protocol, and I haven't added the skin part to the de-stress protocol. But certainly I do a lot more now. That's for sure, using, microneedling, and my diet includes more collagen, different things like that. And then obviously some of the OS1 peptides I've talked about before. So yeah, I'm upping my game, but hopefully that was helpful. Good place to start. Our job is not to eradicate what we work symbiotic with in the environment, but certainly if there's an overgrowth, we do want to decrease that. And then the immunity protocol, we always use it. Okay, Bob's up next. Bob says, hi, Dr. Brawl. I've been listening to you for a few years on and off, and I've really learned a lot from and through your podcasts. Thanks, Bob. My question is regards to kids. I have a son that is turning 7 this month and I'm wondering what tests and also basic supplements I should be giving him. I remember with adults, you say that there's a level 1, level 2, level 3 of supplements. All depends on how far you want to take it. Do you have recommendations for kids on maintaining their health and making sure they get what they need, and how often and which tests to run annually? Thanks and appreciate all you do for us. Happy to help. I mean, let me just give you what I do for my daughters and have done for my daughters for now over 7 years with each one of them. And so my daughters are 10 and 12 now. Every single year they run the food sensitivity test. We literally just completed the food sensitivity test. Literally just did it. Got the results back because it only takes about 2 weeks to get the results. So we do that. We do the hair tissue mineral analysis once a year. Sometimes we do the food twice a year, but at least once. We don't do the hormones test yet. My oldest daughter will be doing it soon, but not yet. We've run the thyroid separately on one of my kids. That's just the TSH, but you can do the whole thyroid panel. We do the omega-3 to omega-6. We don't even do that every year because they supplement with omega-3s every night. And then what was the last one? The minerals metals test, the omega-6, omega-3, the food sensitivity test, the inflammation. I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, and the Candida metabolic and vitamins test we run once a year, which is just the urine based. Now, both of my daughters have also done the bacteria and parasite stool test to test for parasites, but only when we suspected something, which one of my daughters had H. pylori many years ago, so we corrected that. So that's what I do for lab testing. To keep it simple for kids, this is the best thing to do. You do the starter kit, also called the vitamin tox test. You can find that at stephencabral.com/shop. That's the Candida metabolic vitamins test and the minerals and metals test. Small hair sample, small urine sample, simple for kids to do. And then that gives you all your vitamin levels, all your mineral levels, your gut health, and your heavy metals. Simple, easy to do. And then you can just have your kids supplement with omega-3s. Basically covers everything except your food sensitivity. And you can do that separately if you want. That's a finger prick. And I do that with my kids once a year. Okay, so supplementation. Again, I can't give you exact things, but just general recommendations. Daily activated multi or daily fruit and vegetable blend. Your choice, one or the other for your kids. I always say for parents that are using the daily fruit and vegetable blend, keep a bottle of the daily activated multi on hand. If they don't use the smoothie that day, no problem. Just do 1 to 2 of the daily activated multi. When they're over 50 pounds, you can maybe do 2 of the daily activated multi, but not more. When they're under 50, 60 pounds, you only need 1. That's it. You can do it at breakfast or dinner, no problem. Both of my daughters use the daily fruit and vegetable blend. I try to get them to use that as much as I can. They always do omega-3s because they take that with their dinner supplements. They take magnesium a couple times a week, either the full spectrum magnesium, 1 capsule, or the calming magnesium drink. Anytime they might have a little headache or tension, we always do that before bed. What else? Vitamin D3, of course, they're always taking. Vitamin C, we increase that when they get a cold. They take zinc a couple times a week. That's the balanced zinc. What else? Keep it pretty basic. They'll take a Cal Mag sometimes a couple times a week. They're both, growing kids, good healthy nutrition, good healthy food. And then, I have 50 different supplements in my house. And so whenever they need it, I just add that in. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. I know I'm leaving out 1 or 2, but that's the basics. All right, we got a couple more questions from Brian coming in. Brian, just going to bump you just a bit. I am going to answer all your questions, but I want to get at least one more today. So I did 2 Brian, did a Katie, did a Bob. Let's do a Kay. All right, Kay's up next. Dear Dr. Cabral, I'm an IHP student and really love your modules and teaching approach. Thanks, Kay. I'm writing because I've been on a very low dose of testosterone, Cypionate, 30 cc's subcutaneous injection every 10 days for the last several years. I'm 59 years of age and have a petite frame and build. My physician prescribed it to help with bone density, muscle retention, and libido. My question is, if I wish to no longer take testosterone, what kinds of supplements can you recommend to target those areas? I prefer to not have exogenous hormones, if at all possible. Thank you. Yeah, and Kay, just to let you know, we are going to be helping both men and women and in separate groups this fall, just on menopause, andropause, and I can't wait, because this is the group that needs the most. I don't want to say help, that's not the right thing to say, but they need real information that they don't always have to turn to exogenous pharmaceuticals that have other side effects as well. And I'm not totally against people using those. There's a time and place if they want, but they're not side effect free. Then we need to mitigate those. We need to be running other labs to look for potential issues. So I know where you're coming from, and here's exactly what we do. we run the stress, mood, and metabolism test. And that is, if you only ran one test, that's what I would run. And I would literally recommend that to anybody over the age of 40. That's the test you run. I mean, it looks at thyroid, it looks at everything, because thyroid affects your bones. Thyroid affects your overall health and metabolism. So, but if you were just saying, I know, but I just asked, how do I get off testosterone? Get it. You would just start with low dose DHEA. That's it. 5 milligrams at breakfast, 5 milligrams at dinner. And you would then in 8 to 12 weeks, run the stress, mood, and metabolism test, see where your testosterone is, see where DHEA is. And if it's still a little bit low, easy. We would just add another 5 and 5 for DHEA because we're starting at such a low dose. The clinical studies on DHEA, post-menopause or post-andropause, let's just say post 50 years old or so for women, but it can start much sooner, would be 50 to 100 milligrams. So, we're at 10 milligrams a day. And then we just might increase it to 20. So you can do this very slowly, and it's very scientific, and it works amazingly well. DHEA is inexpensive. You can find it at stephencabral.com/shop. It's clean, and it can do wonders as your body starts to slow hormone production. It's not the only thing that you should do, though. I just want to state that, right? Because our hormones lower for many different reasons, and adrenals is one of the main reasons for both men and women. So got to make sure your adrenals are also functioning properly. Anyway, I digress. Run the stress, mood, and metabolism test as you come off the testosterone cypionate, and you can use the DHEA and adrenal soothe or adrenal energy support and other things to help support the adrenals as well. All right, everybody, really great questions today, and I can't wait to answer more of our community's questions tomorrow. So stay tuned. Have an amazing rest of the weekend. I'll talk with you tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.